Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for getting up at the crack of dawn to join us today. We are excited to kick off our equity series, and we're going to start with this morning's presentation. And we have Steve Varela and Crystal DeJaegher. Did I say it right?
Yeah,
Thank
DeJaegher.
you.
Yeah.
DeJaegher joining us today, and we are going to talk about an equitable course embedded AI assistant to close the support gap. Both of you are from Notre Dame, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you for joining us today, and why don't you go ahead and get started?
Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for our presentation. There we go. Okay, so good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you so much for joining us I know it's 8 a.m. at your time, it's 11 a.m. at our time, and 11 a.m. is still really early for us. So we definitely appreciate you showing up this morning for our presentation. So as we mentioned, we're really kind of going to be talking about closing that, for us, it's closing that 2 a.m. support gap, right? And share with you all a pilot that we did and are concluding with an embedded AI assistant in our learning management system as a tool to close that gap. And so just to introduce ourselves, my name is Stephen Varela. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning Technologies here at the University of Notre Dame. Our team oversees the Canvas LMS, Adobe. We also do learning analytics. We work with generative AI, and we also do extended reality, among a lot of other things, including professional development for faculty. I'm going to let my colleague Crystal introduce herself.
Hi there. Good morning. My name is Crystal DeJaegher. As Steve said, he told you a little bit about our group. I'm the associate director for our group. I have a background in instructional design and technology, and I try to leverage that in those various enterprises that we undertake as a team in terms of providing faculty professional development and working with some emerging technologies. So grateful to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So we'd like to start really, if you all wouldn't mind, with a little chat question for everybody. And that is, how does your institution typically support students, particularly in those after hours, from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. If you wouldn't mind, just in the chat, just really briefly, just kind of let us know what kind of things you all do. Awesome. These all look really good. Thank you. And please continue to do this because we definitely want to learn from you all as much as possible. As many of you all know, right, the peak student work hours tend to be after everything's closed on campus and when people have already kind of ended their day. And so this is particularly impactful for those who may be working, right, and additional responsibilities and obligations. And so I still remember when I was a student, I probably get most of my work done between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. for the most part. And for the most part, you're going at a loan for right? There's not much support or availability for people to help you, especially when you have technology issues as well. And so we kind of are thinking about this really kind of from a larger blueprint for equity. And so our Canvas LMS is probably one of the biggest uses, one of the biggest content deliverers of teaching materials on campus. And we do not have the 24/7 support for our LMS. We rely on our service desk and, of course, my team to handle support tickets and otherwise when it comes to technology. And faculty, of course, rely on office hours and other means for their support directly for students. And so we wanted to really kind of we know the LMS is where most faculty and students primarily are. And so we wanted this to be the space where we could potentially provide student support when they need it, whether for their courses themselves or technology issues as well. In addition to that, we're also trying to destigmatize generative AI use. For many of you all, I'm sure this is true as well. Our first reaction to generative AI was the suspicion lens, right? A lens of distrust and saying the assumption that students were going to use it to cheat. We're really trying to get past that paradigm in a lot of different ways. And so that also led us to explore and implement this AI assistant that we'll share with you today. But the biggest thing is how can we really kind of support a student 24/7 when they need it and on those off hours that we know most of them are working. And so we're looking at this again from a Venn diagram support, institutional support, student support, and of course faculty support, and the LMS being a central piece to that. So we implemented, first of all, we evaluated and then implemented an AI assistant. We worked with a company called Praxis, and they have an AI assistant called Pria. The benefits of this are they call it a digital twin. And so if you look them up and things like that, you'll see them identifying that way. We kind of thought that was a little creepy. So we rather refer to it really as a virtual TA or tutor. It's native to Canvas. It's embedded within there. It's a widget basically on the right-hand side of a course screen that follows the students around and really serves as this extension of the faculty member. What makes it really kind of special is this is probably one of the few tools with generative AI that we have full transparency into and also customization abilities. And it's also the only one that we know of that really has been designed for teaching and learning specifically. So it is a RAG environment. So all the interactions that take place with it stay within the course. Nothing is being used to train the LMMs themselves. And actually, faculty have an opportunity to use different types of the large language models within this, utilizing the mechanics of it within their course. It provides vetted knowledge, so faculty also have the ability to train it with their course materials. It will read the course itself, but in additionally to that, they can input other scholarship and research and other information and context that they want to really inform the kinds of answers that they're hoping students will receive. There are some vetted external sources as well, but this has really kind of alleviated any concerns that we have about hallucinations or biased information as well, because really the faculty is in charge of the content that this AI assistant produces. And as we mentioned, it's really designed exclusively to enhance teaching. And it does not complete assignments. There's faculty also has the ability to really set up whatever guardrails they want within this as well. And so again, when we're looking at this institutionally, obviously the biggest concerns regarding AI usage are things like data security and IP protection. And so in our evaluation, this was one of the reasons why we went with Praxis, because it again is a kind of an ecosystem of the faculty course materials, Canvas APIs, and then the mechanics that it's pulling from. And so faculty intellectual property is protected 100% as well. They kind of have an IP vault within there. And as I mentioned, no data is leaving our institution. It's all self-contained within our Canvas ecosystem itself as well. And so I'm going to turn it over to Crystal to talk a little bit more about our pilots, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the student support.
All right. Hey, thanks, Steve. So I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about the research pilot. So we created an institutional review board, an IRB approved study to take a look at how people are using or leveraging this generative AI in the context of their classes in Canvas. And not only how are they using it, more about how they're perceiving it as well. So we used a lot of the traditional tech acceptance model to try to understand what are faculty doing with it, what are students doing with it, what is their perceived benefit and utility of using this, if there are any, that sort of thing. So we are taking a deep dive into that. So admittedly up front, we don't have, we're concluding the pilot that we started a couple of years ago. We're concluding that this summer and rounding up all of the data. We've analyzed some of the data in increments, so we have some information to share with you today about that. But just to give you the context of this study, we started with 50 plus faculty, 60 courses, maybe more than that now, but representing a whole wide range of disciplines and different course types for colleges. At the University of Notre Dame, we have 12 different, is it 12? It's not 12. Colleges and schools. I don't know why another number 12 stuck in my head. But basically we have a range of folks from the College of Engineering, the College of Science, the College of Arts and Letters, and so on, who use this tool in the context of their courses for one semester or more, depending on when they joined our pilot. This involves over 1,600 students, and again, across, we started the pilot in the fall of 2024 with a handful of folks, and it has since expanded. So we did say, and Steve and I have talked about this, we have it says 15,000 plus prompts analyzed. I think that's because it was maybe part of a title that we've leveraged on a few occasions, but now as AI has proliferated, this maybe isn't such an awesome number. But there are a lot of prompts and a lot of data that are represented in our work, and we're very delighted to share some of the insights with you today.
Yeah, we definitely have more than 15,000 prompts now.
Yeah. Yeah, so what we were looking at when, as far as students are prompting, initially when generative AI started to become this huge buzz, people were talking about, oh, prompt engineering, need to learn how to do prompts. And so a lot of this too that we have learned is that with all these AI systems, it's kind of a garbage in, garbage out model, right? Like if you're asking a prompt in a certain way, hoping that it's going to work miracles, it's probably not going to work for you. So we're looking at what types of questions students are asking, how they are asking, what are they trying to seek or find through asking the generative AI agent their questions. And so in doing so, we're able to look at these questions, and they certainly range from students just wanting an answer to students who are more interested in the process of how do they get to whatever it is the faculty member has asked them to in the context of their coursework. We've taken time to align some of those questions with Bloom's taxonomy to be able to sort of give us a space to say at what level are they operating in terms of cognitive behaviors. And then we're also, again, this comes back to the student use of looking at process versus product. Are they really interested in doing the work, or do they really just want the output? And we have more to say about that in an insight here later. But we're also seeing how the evolution of students' understanding of how to use AI is changing in their repetitive interactions with our agent. I shouldn't say agent, with Pria. So we also, and this is most relevant, I think, for this discussion, is we're finding that, when students are using this, we're being able to see usage patterns and frequency across our pilot that is informative for us to understand when students might benefit most from having the help that is typically not afforded to them in our standard work operations. I saw many of you in the chat said, we have 24/7 LMS support, which Steve mentioned. We do not have that any longer. We also have a service desk to deal with tech issues and things related to the technologies that our team supports. But the service desk is only open Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 5. So after hours support is not provided by our institution. Anyway, in addition to that, we also have looked at how faculty are using this, how they have been able to leverage it for their course building, and to really get them to a place where they're starting to consider how will they structure their assignments using this sort of tool. So as opposed to just having this be a bolt-on layer over the top. So really trying to get them to integrate that in a meaningful way. All right, so the first insight that we have here, so this should come as hopefully no surprise, but the expectations that faculty have for the students are really important in terms of what we see student behaviors to be in this system. So if faculty are wanting to engage with this system and integrate it, and they're open with it, I'm not sure how things are at your institutions. We have quite the hodgepodge of courses around here in terms of AI policy. We don't have a strict top-down AI policy that applies to all courses. So if you're a student and you're taking 5 different courses or however many it may be, you might have an AI policy in one area that's different from the AI policy that you have in your other class, and then you're expected to make sense of it all. So we do find that when faculty are open about it, when they discuss it with students are more likely to use it more responsibly, and to be able to develop some of that AI literacy that we are interested in having them develop. Additionally, As Steve mentioned, this tool is built natively in Canvas, and it tends to remove this stigma of cheating. So what we have around here is that some students are so worried about using AI because the guidelines are not clear. Candidly, they're not clear across the board. So they're worried that they're going to, step into some academically dishonest territory, maybe without even meaning to do so. So many of our students are abstaining from using AI for those reasons, at least the students that we've heard from. And then, so now when you have it in Canvas and it's, in this space that seems to be more safe and locked down and secure, they're able to use it as a way to, as part of their learning experience, and they feel okay doing that.
I would just add one more piece, and this connects very directly to the equity issue. We know that some students were paying for their own personal subscriptions to the models, and others just can't afford to do so, right? And so institutionally, we tried to provide safe, secure, generative AI tools across the board for everyone, so that at least we have some kind of foundation that people can potentially use. And again, the LMS being the heart really of teaching and learning here at Notre Dame, this was a good place for us to really provide something for a large group.
Yeah, and on that, I meant to add this question in the chat earlier for you all, just because I was curious to see if you have AI systems or tools that you're making available at your institution for student use. To get to that point that Steve had mentioned, there was some uh, a lack of equity in terms of people being able to, people that had more affluence or more money, more disposable cash could afford to subscribe to some of these more expensive services and get what they wanted. So it was kind of just increasing that gap, which we're trying to avoid by providing systems for student use, approved system for student use on campus. So feel free to jump into the chat and throw out anything if you happen to be using it. If not, no worries. Just wanted to ask. Moving on to our other insight here is that basically we did see that initially we had a lot of students maybe just trying to test the system, try to figure out like, oh, if I ask Pria something, is it just going to give me what I want and then I can just be done here? Like how much time do I need to invest? We had students that were like, write me this essay, as you might suspect. And it was over time, I feel like we could see that students really had evolved their way of thinking about it. And they really stopped after the novelty of it, or maybe the testing phase, we could call it, wore off. They started asking some questions about more involved to where they could leverage the AI tool to actually do the learning that they were intending to do, or that the faculty had intended for them to do, in the context of an assignment and so on. So we saw quite a range of levels in terms of Bloom's taxonomy, ranging from, again, those low end questions that might be something like, when is this assignment due, or where can I find the syllabus, or that sort of thing, or asking questions about the syllabus if that was part of what the faculty were leveraging in Pria. And then the high end, we started to see that students were connecting their prior knowledge and being able to ask more in-depth questions that would get at the understandings or the learnings that our faculty wanted our students to walk away with. All right. And then, all right. So the third insight here is the student perspective on the AI partnership. So we call it an AI partnership. I know sometimes doesn't always feel like AI is a partner, especially in this landscape where it's being stigmatized just simply for cheating, or, people wanted to do a lot of surveillance around what are students doing with respect to using these types of tools. Our students had evolved their perspectives to seeing that AI could be useful and could be leveraged to enhance learning. And again, it's not just this surveillance spy that, is just a solely used for cheating. And it was funny that we did have students come to the realization, again, this is kind of like that garbage in, garbage out realization, where if you put in stuff into the system that's not very well developed, you're not going to get anything well developed in return. And so having them see that it actually does take work to provide a good prompt to put into the system to get the returns that you expect. That was one of the other perspectives that was shared. And additionally, students here find it to be important that while they can use AI to enhance or to supplement their learning activities, that they still are very interested in developing that critical thinking. And they actually are trying to understand or make sense of like, gee, I put this into the system as a prompt. Why is AI returning the things that it's returning to me? And trying to really get a comprehensive picture of what's going on behind the scenes. So we saw evidence of students change, not necessarily like changing, but thinking about AI in different ways beyond what I think most people would assume. So I think that was really an important piece of our pilot. And the next page, this is, I'm going to turn it back over to, am I turning it back over to Steve?
Yeah,
All
sure.
right, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Crystal. No, thanks, Crystal. And thank you for we wanted to share the some of the other results with you regarding our pilot because we know that if we're going to create or allow a tool like this and scale it across the board, that there are a lot of fundamental concerns that people have about generative AI. And so part of what we're trying to do with our research study is alleviate a lot of those concerns. And really, we found now what we call misperceptions about how students are using it, simply because we actually have data now to show the opposite of really what a lot of perceptions were. To go back to the kind of the idea of the 24/7 availability, this is probably where we really saw some wonderful results as well. So much as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, a lot of students really kind of will get their work done after a lot of campus resources are already closed or unavailable, including the faculty member, because no one wants to be a faculty member online 24 hours a day themselves either. And so we found the use when we looked at the timestamps and the usage overall over the course of these years. It verified and validated what our initial assumption was, and that students were primarily using it from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m., right? With a few outliers after 2 a.m., right? But the idea was that ultimately, this is why it was so useful for them, was that, again, the faculty member wasn't necessarily available, and even their peers weren't available. And so when they needed additional help with the course content, because the faculty member, again, had trained this and when it was building off of the course materials themselves, they were able to get additional pedagogical supports and learning support without the faculty member necessarily being available at that time frame. And then again, they could ask even course logistical questions to help ensure that they were on the right track and still very much on track with what the course expectations were. Um, we did see spikes, of course, and this should no surprise to you either. Spikes around times of exams, right? When exams were coming up, students really utilizing this. And again, we were able to kind of see because faculty members, as I mentioned, and system managers are able to see the kind of prompts that are being input here. A lot of it was really, again, clarification, study guides, things like that to help them prepare for the exam rather than, again, seeking direct answers for things. They were really utilizing it well in terms of preparation and to, again, enhance what they and prepare for what they were about to encounter. And so when we think about this in terms of like expanding educational access, we're really thinking, I mean, Notre Dame is not necessarily doesn't necessarily have a lot of non-traditional learners. Um, but why this is important to us is, and Crystal and I will be the first ones to tell you, we're first generation college students ourselves. And we have first generation college students at Notre Dame as well. And there's probably a big misconception about Notre Dame is that everyone has money and everyone has resources. And the reality is that is not true in a lot of different ways. And so we know again from our own personal experiences as students that this is something that this is a gap that we definitely need to bridge. And a lot of students also, first generation students in particular, tend to hesitate to seek out those resources or just don't know where those resources are. So if we can meet them where they're at, and provide something that where they're doing their coursework directly, I think we've done a good service here for a wide variety of the student body. The other, outcome that we were really pleasantly surprised about was how students, we do have, I would say, a very international campus of student bodies, and I'm sure many of you all are as well. one of the things we saw was, regardless of the class, students interacting with the AI assistant in their native language, everything from Arabic to German to Spanish. What am I forgetting? Russian, right, Crystal?
Mandarin.
Just Mandarin, thank you. Just a variety of languages. And this is something I think people really kind of overlook when it comes to the benefits of generative AI. Is it does really well with language and language translation. It doesn't do very good with necessarily accents and how it sounds in terms of the native language. But if again they're seeking clarification, we had a lot of students utilize it through their native language to interact with their course content, which again benefits them because, as we know, multilingual learners, when they're focusing on the subject and not the linguistic translation, that's a huge benefit for them, right? They can go directly into the course content and work that way without that extra layer of just trying to understand the comprehension part. Um, Additionally, because it provides really kind of deep understanding of course materials, it goes beyond the translation, right? They can ask other course, other course concepts. We also saw a lot of students really kind of building off their prior knowledge and their other classes and asking questions within there, besides the language use. And then finally, we really kind of again see this as full academic equity, right? We're trying to ensure that all students, regardless of their native language, regardless of their economic situation, and meet them where they're at. You're gonna hear me say that a lot, right? In our LMS, where so many of them are in terms of their learning, and so providing something that can only really kind of serve as a tool. One of the things that we found by putting it into the ecosystem of our LMS was, as mentioned before, it destigmatized it in a way that they just saw it as another tool of their learning, much like a discussion board or any of the other functionality that happens within the LMS, not something separate from things where they had to leave and go do something else. Um, they were able to contextualize it in terms of their course and their specific learning. And so those two other, indirect kind of benefits besides the direct enhancement of student learning, but really the fact that we could provide them with after hours support, and then again also meet them in terms of where they're at in terms of their native language. These were really huge benefits in terms of access and their student success. And so, as a final kind of conclusion here, and we're happy to take any questions that you may have for us here. The idea here is that when we embed intelligence, right, faculty intelligence, generative intelligence, student intelligence securely within the architecture of the course, AI doesn't become a shortcut anymore. It becomes part of that process of learning and part of that process of that we want them to go through the struggle, the process of acquiring knowledge, as opposed to simply the product. For us, we look at this as really kind of that engine for equity, between the technology can provide at times, but it does come with a lot of intentional planning. It does come with strategy, and in our case, we wanted to verify all of it with research, so that we weren't coming here to say, hey, you should get this product and try it, right? We wanted to be able to show you that the outcomes have been real, and meaningful for our students. And with that, we are a little bit early. I guess I don't know. We just kind of bruised through it. I know we gave you quite a bit here, but I'll stop sharing.
We do have one question, Steve, that I see, which is, what did your chatbot tool evaluation process look like? And how did you end up selecting the Praxis tool? Did you want to tell her a little bit about our innovation hub process?
Yes, thank you. So one of the things my team has built in for us as an institution is something we call the Academic Innovation Hub. So this is a process where we evaluate and explore emerging technologies, but also established technologies that potentially could be used in a different way. these proposals or what we look at in terms of our innovation hub come from directly from faculty, sometimes indirectly from students, and then also from us. When we're looking at the technological ecosystem of our information technology on campus, we're looking to where specifically where we're seeing gaps in terms of teaching and learning. And so our evaluation process goes through rigorous parts of InfoSec, contract, reviews, and then of course we look at also our tech from a pedagogical point of view, and making sure that things are accessible, making sure that um, again that it meets the learning goals of our instructors. And so this was an opt-in process in terms of joining in our process, again with full transparency for all the students who were part of it. But the faculty, we didn't have any problems or difficulties finding faculty who really wanted to be part of this. But the Innovation Hub is our process to really kind of evaluate everything and make sure that not only from on a technical perspective that it meets those requirements, but also from a pedagogical perspective. And I see
And
here, oh, sorry,
yep,
go
I
ahead.
was going to take that one. Is that okay?
Yeah, please. Yeah,
Okay,
please.
so Amy asks, has there been resistance from anti-AI faculty even having this tool embedded within the LMS, and then can it be turned off? To answer the question, we are on no shortage of anti-AI faculty around here. But I should have said it. We should have said maybe in the beginning. So like being a pilot, this isn't turned on for every single user of our LMS. It's only the people that have opted into the pilot. And so those people have gone through a process. They had to go through an onboarding with our team to learn how to use it, how to train it with, how to make their avatar represent whatever they wanted to represent in terms of themselves, or like Steve chose a golden retriever for his, so some people, this is the other part of our study is looking at is what types of images are people using to represent themselves, and the whole process. For any of you who may be into video games or have ever played a video game where you get to design your character, the length of that process in comparison to playing the actual game, how much time is spent there is kind of interesting. That could probably be its own independent study too, Steve. But anyway, so yeah, it can be turned on and turned off like per course. We have it on a per course basis right now. So as far as anyone else who's not using it, I don't think that they are directly lodging any feedback to us on that, because I think they may be aware of its existence, but if it's not impacting them directly, they don't really have any. They have other things that they can focus on in terms of providing constructive feedback about AI. I don't know if you have anything else you might add to that, Steve.
Yeah, I would also add that institutionally, we're a Google school, so we've made Gemini and Notebook LM available for everybody on campus as well. And so we wanted though to provide something very specifically that was designed for teaching and learning. So if we're not getting them in the LMS, we institutionally we wanted to make these available as well. They're working now currently to with Anthropic about seeing about that kind of institutional license as well, and how we might do that. And we also have ChatGPT EDU for paid usage. I should mention really quickly too that the individual instructors, they can also like say that they're going 1 week doing something maybe leading up to exam. They don't want the students to utilize it. They can turn it off inside their course and then turn it back on the following week or whatever days they want. In addition to turning it off and on, as I mentioned, they can actually change which LLM they're using for it. So they can pull from Gemini, they can pull from Claude, they can pull from ChatGPT, all the ones that are available. Because we should mention this also earlier. Pria is middleware, and it's not an LLM itself. It's a middleware software that's pulling from. It's kind of in the middle of the user and the LLM. So it allows that kind of, again, a lot more autonomy and flexibility for the instructors.
Yeah, and then there are some other questions in the chat about training and about how
Mhm.
much training was involved to teach faculty to design the AI tools, which would be in this case configuring Pria to be what they want it to be. And then how long did it take faculty to go through that process? And I think at least earlier on in the pilot, this was a bit more extensive, but you can probably speak to
Yes.
that, Steve, since I was less involved in those early phase trainings.
Yes, we basically had onboarding materials for them, including syllabus language, and we frequently asked questions for both themselves and for students. We basically onboarding a faculty member probably took about a week or so, 2 weeks at the most. just so that they had an understanding of how the tool worked itself. And then on their own, and this was our hope. So some faculty, they just wanted it in there, just kind of like a resource within their course. And others though, we're happy to see they transform their assignments and they transform their assessments, because really that should be the starting point for anybody, in our opinion, regarding AI is starting with their own course objectives and assessments before bringing in any kind of technology tool. And so we were happy to see that many faculty transformed their courses this way and made this AI assistant part of the process and part of the instruction, as opposed to just being there as a use. We also saw that those who, and this is true for anything in an LMS, when you don't put, if you just put slides up in an LMS, students never go back to refer to them. It's always when they have to do something with them, when it's active learning, that they'll truly have some meaning for them. And so, yeah, it ranged based on the faculty member themselves in terms of how much preparation they needed. But we basically, and yes, those onboarding resources are available, and we can send them to folks, I believe, because we have it. I can find the link really quickly. But we use a ThingLink, if you're familiar with that software, where we basically put together kind of a learning paths for people regarding not only how to use Pria, but the overall use of generative AI at Notre Dame in general too. Did I forget anything, Crystal?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think for a while there in the beginning too, there was kind of a community of practice check-in,
Yes.
right, with folks after they were onboarded, just to sort of see how they were coming along in the semester, or providing them an outlet for any feedback or anything that they might want to talk to our team about. I remember that happening in the beginnings.
Yeah, so that's still kind of going on, very, a lot less informal. We used at the first year of our pilot, we definitely brought people in at least 2 or 3 times during the semester to see how things were going, what assignments they were doing, and the student reaction to all of that. We did also survey the students themselves and their use of it. And so, in addition to looking at the prompts that were implemented, we got feedback from the faculty and students themselves on how it was going. And I'm trying to find our onboarding link.
Are there any other questions for our speakers?
If we could ask again, just to kind of reiterate Crystal's question, you can put it in the chat. How have your institutions made generative AI available to the students? Have they done so on a broad scale, or limited ways, or not yet, letting people do it on their own?
Or kind of just in general, what's going on with your institution, I guess, is I'm also curious. Because I know that higher ed hasn't, I mean, we're not there. We haven't fully transitioned out of the, capture and surveil, academic integrity issues. Steve, is the getting to know AI at Notre Dame, is that what you're referring to, or is it a different thing link, by the way?
I
You
found
got
it.
it. Okay, great, great. I was looking, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and actually we should put that to AI.md. We have a lot of institutional resources at this website too, including the thing link.
Yes, and the ones on ai.nd.edu is more just like policy and other resources, or I say policy with quotation marks. I think there are some actual policies and then some other guidelines and frameworks for thinking about AI, just that we are trying to deploy at our institution more broadly. In terms of what tools are approved for use, for what data are they to be used for, that sort of thing, in case any of that's helpful for you all as you're considering or thinking about AI at your institutions.
Yeah. And I'll just add that also is that I think we have to think about this institutionally. Generative AI is, as much as it impacts individual faculty and individual students very directly, without really kind of having an institutional plan or perspective, it's very difficult to get any cohesion around it. And I think that's where that digital divide is going to occur if we don't think about it institutionally, and make sure that the resources are available for folks. Again, even if you are vehemently opposed to it, personally and in your course, we don't want students trying to go out there and get their own accounts, and because again, their literacy may not be at a level where they're not concerned about their credentials. They're not concerned about the materials that they're sharing, the data that they're offering. And this becomes even a greater concern with agentic AI. And again, so you know, anything we can to really kind of help them understand them, but also provide that safe, secure environment, I think is kind of obligatory on the part of an institution.
All right, we got the 4-minute countdown.
Yeah. Also, I mean, it's early, so
Yeah.
well, I can imagine this was a lot to absorb at 8 in the morning.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you again very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Very much so. Yes, thank you.
We want to thank you both for speaking this morning. This was really informative, really informative. I know
Thank you.
that I'm in Peralta uh, College District, and we don't have anything in place yet, but we have a core group who are, you know, we're itching to do something. I'm
Yeah.
in a pilot project with Quicker 3C Media, and I've been in Nectar AI's pilot project as well, where I incorporate AI course assistant into my Canvas courses. And
Hmm.
it's, students seem to enjoy using it. They learn how to use it. They were initially struggling with the prompt and actually interacting with the course assistant, but then after a while they saw how it can help facilitate their learning.
Right.
So I'm going to do some more investigation on what you guys are doing, because I think it is very cool. And with that, I really do want to thank you for spending your time with us this morning.
Uh, our pleasure completely. Yes. Thank you for having us.
This is great. And thank you all for joining us so early in the morning as well. Although wherever you are, it might not be early morning, but have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.